Hi, I'm Karen Holton, ET and Angelic Experiencer, author, exopolitical ambassador, ascension coach, and content creator.
And I'm Joan Widen, clairvoyant medium, Reiki master teacher, energy healer, body, mind, and soul coach, and podcaster.
And this is the Unseen Nexus podcast.
Have you ever truly wondered what lies beyond the veil?
Or want to learn more about our transdimensional neighbors?
Join us as we unravel the mysteries of existence, from profound spiritual awakenings and ancient wisdom,
to interstellar visitors, cutting-edge discoveries, and the complex conspiracies that bind them all.
We're on a journey to uncover the truth about humanity's extraordinary place in the cosmos.
Get ready to challenge your perceptions and expand your understanding.
Your spiritual mashup has begun.
Welcome back to the Unseen Nexus podcast. So today's subject is the role of government secrecy and disclosure, the implications of a cover-up of alien contact, transparency, and public knowledge. For generations, the idea of a government cover-up of alien contact has been a staple of both science fiction and the cornerstone of conspiracy theories. But is it just a story? We're going to peel back the layers of this fascinating and complex issue. We're not here to prove or disprove the existence of extraterrestrial life, but instead, we're going to use this powerful idea as a lens to examine something equally important, the very nature of government secrecy and the profound implications it has for transparency and public knowledge in a democratic society. All of the links are featured below in the description. Please do check us out, subscribe to our channels, leave us your comments, like our videos, and do share our content with your friends. I'm very happy to announce that you can now get a channel membership to both of my channels on Rumble and YouTube. And of course, we're joined by my co-host, Denise. My co-host Joan. I'm sorry. And I don't know where that came from. I got confused. And so let's get into a really good discussion today.
Let's do it. All right. So I know you have, and I'm just going to point this out. Look I thought to wear pink today, and so are you. So I totally got the memo of what we're supposed to wear today.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Thank you, Denise, for the money.
I want to thank Denise for the donation and say hello, and also say hi to Rodney. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
All right.
Big subject. So Joan, do you want to start us off with what your theory is?
Well, let's start off with the one thing that's big in the news here in Canada, first off. So if you're not from Canada, you may not have heard, it's slowly starting to get traction and go around the world, is that Eastern Canada, mainly the maritime provinces, you're not allowed to go hiking. You're not allowed to go fishing. And you can't really go out. It's another sanctioned stay home kind of thing. I guess you could walk on the sidewalk, but not in any sort of woods, because apparently walking in the woods triggers fires. Well, for those of that people that aren't responsible enough and care to light fires, which I'm going to say is probably slim to none, except for some of the smokers, which again, smokers won't go hiking because they can't really breathe well when they're walking, right? Wouldn't you agree, Karen? So now that
there's
go ahead.
something.
Go
Well,
ahead.
the other thing is that the different people, politicians who are announcing that they've approved these restrictions, they're coming up with all different reasons. So one reason is they said it was because when people go hiking, they cause forest fires. Then the next thing they said is because people, when they go hiking, or camping, they often have troubles, like they break a leg out in the middle of nowhere, capsize their dinghy on the pond, things like that. And because they need all their rescue people to be available for the forest fires, they won't be available to save people. But that just still smells like a rat to me. And then more recently, now it's coming out that they're going to spray all the woods with Roundup,
Roundup.
and that makes me shudder because that's going to kill a lot of indigenous plants, medicinal plants, and food for the animals, and indirectly poison the animals. So I'm a little
Right?
concerned about that.
And they're so concerned about fire. So they're going to spray Roundup, making more dead brush, which equals what? More fuel, essentially, for the fire. And obviously, Roundup itself is also very flammable. So it just doesn't make any sort of sense. Now, they're saying it in the name of saving the woods, that they want you to stay home. However, a $28,000 fine for a define.
Oh, that's only the first level of fines.
That's true.
They
That's
actually
true.
go up to
Thousand.
$150,000 fine if you're caught walking in the woods.
Yeah, yeah. Like, but people are openly defying it. And yes, Denise, you're right. Roundup. I don't know if it's banned in Canada, but it is cancer causing. And what's concerning is, why do they need to spray it in public woods? Like, that would be weird. That would be like Alberta going, let's spray Roundup in all of the Canadian Rockies to prevent, like, I don't know. That doesn't, there's no, that's asinine to me. It doesn't make any sort of sense, because you do have wildlife. And now, if wildlife is going to be eating all of those things, all of a sudden, what's going to happen to the game, right? Like, so the deer, the everything, the moose, or whatever wildlife that people hunt and eat, now they're all tainted by all of that stuff. And it is very criminal. Any more
Mhm.
thoughts on that? Like, it's really preventing, it's, mental health in Canada, they say, is crucial, and they want everyone to be happy with. But at the same time, now they're putting these things in, which what? Make the population's mental health decline. Huge, right?
I think part of the problem is they keep saying that we live in a democracy, but really we don't, not at all. And that was very evident between 2020 and 2022, where we didn't have any rights. And it sounds too much, the pattern is too much like during that time. They're just calling it something different now and kind of kettling us to start staying home. And and again, it's the people. Well, there's two kinds of citizenship. There's natural and common law citizenship, which just by the fact that we were born to this planet, we have certain inalienable rights. But then there is also um, our the way that democracy is set up is it's supposed to be the will of the people, and the politicians are supposed to follow the will of the people, but
Correct.
that's not what's happening. So now, because of greed and lust for power and money, the politicians have sold out to, I guess, the highest bidder. And this is in my opinion. I'm not stating a fact. I'm not a political scientist, but that's my opinion. And I think this segues quite well into why the powers that be, the politicians, those that have the firsthand knowledge about extraterrestrial contact, why they're not coming forth and telling us. And we've got a few theories to do with that. Joan, do you want to start with your theory? Is probably the most common one, that they think that humanity will freak out. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. They're just saying, okay, well, we don't tell you a lot of things because we don't want to create mass hysteria. We don't want to create, quote unquote, like the Independence Day, that movie, where everyone freaks out. So you'll have the people that are freaking out, the world's going to end, and then you'll have the other side of it where people are going to go approach and go like go all in and go over that. And again, it's a mental health thing, and they're trying to say that's what it will be, but honestly there's so many different intricate details to that, whereas if they actually told us the truth on some things, there wouldn't be mass hysteria because
Mm-hmm.
we would be informed. And watching different podcasts and stuff, someone I had heard where people are like, oh, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, what I understood and what someone said it well, and I can't remember who, is a conspiracy theorist is really someone that's well educated, because well educated and well informed, because they are going and doing the research themselves, and they are trying to find the information that they need to come up to the conclusion themselves. However, that's where people go, well, no, 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 that means you're a conspiracy theorist because you're not taking, trust me, bro, it's good. What I tell you, it's good. It's like, trust me, bro. It's like, no one's going to trust you. And governments have said, don't trust us. Figure it out on your own. Like, you can't trust anything. You can't trust the media. You can't trust this. So all of a sudden now, if you do your own research, then you're a conspiracy theorist, which, unfortunately, it is what it is. But more on your thoughts, Karen?
Um, well, I think it's, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Joan, but I actually think it's deeper and darker than that.
I'm sure.
And I have Rodney says we're running out of conspiracies because so many of them are turning out to be absolutely true. Now, I
Exactly.
just want you to know, before I present some of my theories that segue into what Joan was just saying, I want everyone to basically have a trigger alert here, because some of the theories I have are fairly dark. And I have no way of knowing whether they're actually factual or not. This is just something that I came up with as I thought and pondered upon why government secrecy, lack of transparency. Ultimately, I think it's because there are a few people who have all the power and they call the shots, and money and power is all they have. They don't even know about other aspects of reality, and they're calling the shots. And I actually believe the politicians are just like pawns on the chessboard. I don't think they have any real power at all. And we've really seen this in the last 6 months. So that's what I think. But I think that one reason why they're not coming out with disclosure on the whole ET issue is because they are gaining, one way or another, they're gaining technology and technological advances. So for instance, I did some research on AI. AI has been available, and the powers that be have been using it since the 1950s. This is not new. Integrated circuit boards, fiber optics, um, anti gravity technology, you name it. They may be gleaning some or all of this from otherworldly beings. Let's just call them that. And so I think what could be happening is they are warehousing, for lack of a better term, all these different technologies, and then they're very slowly um, giving a limited supply to humanity. So, for instance, when computers came out, we were all crazy for computers. My first computer was 56K. That's it. That's all we got. And then eventually, we got up to 1000K, and then we got up to where we are today. But just like cell phones, every 2 years, when your plan is finally, your phone's paid off, they want you to get the next phone that's got more bells and whistles. So I think that on the one hand, it very much could be keeping those technologies under wraps so that they could slowly develop them for a market to us, the common people. And then, of course, that serves as keeping us as debt slaves, and just trying to make ends meet. At least here in Canada is very difficult. And then everybody wants to get the latest in technology, and so I think that's part of it. I think they want to keep all of that under wraps, and then, of course, not to mention the technologies that can be used for dominating one nation over another.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you that's the word, like what I said, why the government does that. It's not technically what I totally believe. I feel that's what they've pushed out to the masses so the masses know, like, this is, you can keep us safe, you can do whatever. But I don't necessarily feel like that's obviously the truth, right? It goes so deep, it goes so dark in some cases, because when people get too close to the sun, that they feel like, then they totally burn them up, and it goes from there. One theory I'll just stay
Yeah.
out there is Robert Kennedy, or JFK, right?
Hmm.
JFK. We'll just say that, right? All of a sudden, wow, holy shit. But
Yeah, we were
anyways,
told we were going to get disclosure on Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy Sr., JFK,
and
Epstein,
nothing.
on and
Yeah.
on and on. And look what's happened. We don't
No,
really
there's
know
nothing.
any more than we knew a year ago or 5 years ago. Somebody's controlling the drip, drip, drip of information.
Yeah, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, I just, they are taking technology. Where are they getting it from? Like, seriously, some of this technology, like you said, has been around forever, and yet still, you know, nothing. We don't,
Hmm.
they don't say where it's come from, except for, no, 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 scientists have come up with it. Scientists have done this. Scientists are all of this, right? Like, and it's it's weird and it's hard to believe. Yeah, right, yeah. And ancient civilizations, again, how did they build pyramids? And why do they have flying gods, right? And in India, they have that cube that's just sitting in the ground, that they walk around and pay homage to it, right? Which in theory is considered also alien, but no one, quote unquote, knows for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
So ultimately, it has to do with money and power. And that is what has always basically ruled humanity. This is not something new. It's not like we had this wonderful open society maybe thousands of years ago, but certainly not in the last 6,000 years. And And so I wanted to just sort of dip that into the next theory I have. And like I said, my theories are a little bit disturbing. So if you guys, are not ready for this, please use some caution. I don't know where you're all at with your mental thinking and your opinions. And I'm not saying that any of this is fact. This is all, Joan and I are just theorizing. We're
Yeah.
theorizing what could be the situation and why does it look the way it does. So my second one is, what if the Earth does not belong to humans? So I don't know if you guys have seen that movie called Jupiter Rising. Of course, it's just a Hollywood movie. It's not based on fact, but it's very interesting because it raises the whole concept that Earth does not actually belong to humans. And we think it does, but maybe it actually doesn't. And maybe there are advanced beings that are on their way here uh, to get an accounting from those they've left behind to be in charge. So that's another thing. They wouldn't want us to know that, because then we'd know that the world leaders and the banksters are not actually in charge. And there's been quite a bit of speculation that these ruling beings could arrive as early as 2026 or 2027. And then there are all the theories of underground habitats that have all kinds of beings that are non-human, that also could actually be calling the shots. And a lot of remote viewers and stuff have seen um, through remote viewing um, are different human military projects where they are actually working with non-human intelligences. So that's another option I just want to throw out there.
Right. And there's also the other option, um, like these of having hybrids, right? Like having humans mixed with extraterrestrials. No one knows that. And, I'm sure it's being done, but again, we have no proof. And what was it on Skinwalker Ranch, right? They drilled into the mesa and they came up with some sort of, what was it that came out? Was it some sort of metal or pottery or anything like something like that? Do you remember, Karen? Like it just
Mhm,
recently. And
mhm,
they're like, there's no reason why this drill bit shouldn't have gone through that, but it isn't getting through it. So, and that there's so many different interesting things where it doesn't add up and where our machines can't work around any extraterrestrial um, sightings or any forces. They just kind of die, right? So it's almost like they have some sort of EMF themselves that kill any sort of man made technology,
mhm, mhm.
right?
Well, I believe Dr. Stephen Greer's put out a documentary called I think it's called The Lost Generation, where there have been all kinds of humans who have come up with all kinds of technologies that would benefit humankind. Everything from engines that run on water, engines that run on air, engines that run on energy that's just within the ether. We've had so many things. We've had people like Wilhelm Reich, who used crystals and orgone generators for healing. There's Royal Rife, who invented a frequency machine where you could match the frequency of whatever the disease was that you have, and have cures. There's been so many, Nikola Tesla,
Yeah.
there's been so many people And strangely, they either were imprisoned, completely
Or
socially isolated and ridiculed, or they all died mysteriously, and none of those technologies have been available. And so our whole reality here on Earth could be quite different, with free energy for everybody, and just so great. But the powers that be wanted all the technology to be based on oil, gas, AC electricity, DC electricity, all these different ways of that we
control.
could have a society, but not anything that has any kind of global kindness or fairness towards all people. That's just been prevented constantly. And there's so much evidence of that. You can't convince me that that's not so.
No, and people, it's it's wanting the power. It's wanting to have that deep, profound power that people can't um, get surpass them, right? It's about squashing and keeping people the where they are so that they no one can move up, no one can grow, no one you can't grow unless they say you can't gain wealth without someone noticing, right? It's one of those interesting things, right? Um, even we could say if someone were to win the lottery, the odds of them actually staying wealthy like that are slim to none, is what they say. So now they've imprinted that in our minds. So if you win the lottery, they say, I think within 5 years, that person will be completely broke
Mm-hmm,
or be back where they were before. So now they've
mm-hmm,
imprinted that. So what happens to majority of the people that actually do win the lottery? That's what
mm-hmm,
exactly what happens. Instead of
mm-hmm,
going, well, no, I don't have to accept this, and it can be any which way. It can be that I can keep my wealth. But again, it's more like pushing it, trying to push it and make sure that you don't exceed where you are, right? Like in the
mm-hmm.
unaliving business of things, like it's crazy, right? I know you spoke about Epstein before, right? And when you look at the things they say, well, look, someone came in there and they actually, okay, but when and this is my opinion only, is I watched that Epstein Netflix documentary that they did. And the first thing I got was, I don't think he's dead. I didn't think he actually died. And that's what I got at first, because I'm like, no, they staged it or whatever. And then in that documentary, and now this picture might have gone away or whatever. Yes, they have him on a stretcher, but if someone was truly dead, you don't have someone on the stretcher sitting up with oxygen, because if they were unalive, there's no way they could sit, let's say, right? And then now all the pictures I see is him lying down with oxygen mask on him. But anyways, that's another, right, interesting thing. And again, those won't get unleashed because, well, there's nothing to see here. Move along, nothing to see, nothing to see,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So
but I guess
go back to, yeah.
my theory is that there is a chance that this Earth doesn't even belong to the humans. We've seen evidence of races of giants. We've seen the megalithic buildings that have been built. Now they're finding out that they were built like 200,000 years ago, not 40,000 years ago. There's all kinds of evidence that there have been other beings who subjugate human beings. And even in the days of the kings and queens and stuff, like if we even look back 400 years ago, we see that basically the common people had no power whatsoever. Anything that was created or invented or of value, the royalty took it and used it. That was not allowed. I mean, we weren't even allowed to wear certain colors. We weren't allowed to do all kinds of things. I don't think that has changed a lot. We were given the illusion of democracy after World War II, or even in the early 1900s. But before that, it was all a feudal rulership situation. And then along came world wars and technological advances. So I mean, we've only for a very like maybe at the most 225 years, which is not that long ago, we didn't have telephones, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have anything like we do today. All of this has happened very, very quickly, and it's gaining momentum and speed as we come up to our modern day. So I'm just saying, what if humans are not actually ruling the earth? So that would leave who would be ruling the earth? Well, it could be like the Anunnaki. It could be, well, what I might consider to be evil spirits or demons or interdimensional, negative or nefarious interdimensional beings. Who knows? But I actually think there could be the possibility that there are advanced non-human intelligences, let's just call it that, who are actually coming back. And I don't think they have any love for the common human either, but they're going to come back and require an accounting from those who have carried the power. And I don't think these beings actually even have any use for money, maybe gold, but certainly not for money. All of that's a construct that that's been formulated to control us and push us into slavery, back into, well, we never really got out of the slavery in the first place.
I would say it would be, you're right, gold and other different minerals that we have on this earth because we're so rich in minerals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and back to your giants, like if you look at Easter Island, all those heads, those all those headstones actually have bodies to them as well. So, and those are huge, like giants, like it's crazy. But yeah, like so we don't know who is running everything, but yeah, I would agree with you that it's not who we think is. I don't feel necessarily, again, my opinion only, that the government is the one that's actually doing the ruling or things like that. Um, but you know, it's it's kind of clear, especially in my opinion, when a president says, yes, we'll unfile all these files and everyone can see. And then all of a sudden, nothing to see, nothing, there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, he thought there was something there because he wanted to unfile them. And then now all of a sudden, oh, well, there isn't anything there. So again, who told him not to unredact those files?
Mm-hmm.
Who told them not to unclassify those files, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's so much nefarious stuff that goes on, and like you said, also with the remote viewing, right? Agencies use people like me they train us and like Karen to do remote viewing, and it's not just to see what others are doing, it's also for other things that are far nefarious than we could ever think of, or what I would like to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in that, then you have no say, no nothing. It just is what
Mm-hmm.
it is. And then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you're
So
deemed a
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, Oh, yeah, and if you're deemed to be an enemy, well then, again, that's tough. Go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say my third theory is that the powers that be, being human, have actually sold the surface of our planet to other ET races. So I have done a fair amount of deep dives into the different kinds of extraterrestrial races that are here on Earth. Some of them are supposed to be friendlies, and some of them not so much, and some of them we just don't know. But we know that there are large sections in the United States where they have housing facilities for different extraterrestrial races. So if beings from other realities are here, maybe the whole climate change thing is actually about re-terraforming our planet to suit their needs, not necessarily ours. And it's interesting that there's tons of documentation and proof out there that those with money and power are building vast underground networks, huge cities. They're all connected with anti-gravity train-like systems that are subterranean. This has been going on for a long time, but it's getting to the point where they're not so careful about hiding it anymore. So they've all got their places they're going to go. So I don't know if we have a cataclysm coming. It could be the sun going into a mini nova. It could be a pole shift. It could be, um, um, comets or asteroids that are going to come too close to the Earth. Who knows? It could be any number of things. And all those with the money and power have all their housing secured below ground, and I guess nuts to the rest of us. But there could be an extraterrestrial component to all of that where they have made a deal with the powers that be for the surface of planet Earth, and we're not welcome to stay here anymore because we're viewed basically like termites or rats, or you just get rid of us because we're filthy carbon producing no goods, and they don't have a good purpose for us anymore. So there's always that as well. I know it's fairly extreme, and like I said, I have no proof about what I'm saying. I'm theorizing. I'm just going, why? Why are these situations the way they are? Why would all the world governments come together with so much secrecy? And we really see evidence of that around Antarctica as well. Nobody's allowed to go there and see what's going on. What's going on? I want to know.
Right, and they do have a secret agency government facility there. Absolutely. And even Area 51, if you really want, you're still not allowed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, yeah. The elites, it's interesting because the elites are starting to, and the elites that Max is talking about, I would say aren't your Hollywood people, aren't they, you just don't know who they are because they don't really, again, if someone's spouting off what they have and what they can do and all this stuff, I'm going to tell you those people are not the elites. They're really nobody because the elites and who they are don't necessarily say anything. They look
I don't
and
I don't
act and
call
talk
them
like
elites. Sorry, I don't call them elites because there's nothing elite about them. If you
no,
look up the word elite and then ask yourself why you're using the term elite, they're the parasite class. Everything they have has been stolen from us. Everything. None of that has been earned
it's not
because of their
elite. Yeah.
genetic superiority or their higher intelligence or anything like that. And so I think maybe a few of them know what's going on, but I don't even think the politicians really know what's going on. Not to mention, once you get to a certain level of financial gain, It's all psychopaths. They have no compassion, they have no empathy, they have no creativity. They got nothing. All they have is what they've stolen from all of us. They have nothing. Anyway, I'm sorry, but I just cringe every time I hear people talking about the elites. I don't see anything elite about them. I just see them as being pretty scummy, actually.
Well, if you think about it, I that's how I feel about some Hollywood people, right? They call themselves elite, but actually
Mhm.
they're not, you know, like they're actually quite dirty. And
Well,
I
I
feel,
mean, yeah, I mean, we're not probably not gonna get into the whole pee thing, but it's disgusting. It's
oh, yes,
disgusting what those with money and power are doing. And so anyway, long story short, those that have all the prestige and the glory and the being able to bypass all the laws, they don't want to give that up. They don't want to give any of that up. So the best thing to do is to keep all of us in confusion and constantly running around not knowing what's going on and theorizing and until it's too late, I think. So
absolutely. Like we're just supposed to sit and just take it, like literally. And if you have something to really, you know, balk about it, if you're on the right path, from what I understand, you got to be careful, right? Because when you're on the right path, then certain things start to, you know, go strange. You get noticed, and that's not, they don't, you don't want to be noticed in that sense because it just
yeah,
puts
like
you
the
in a
whistleblower.
different, well, that's right, right? Like, you know, you look at anything like that. Movies show it. And, you know, like people say, oh, well, that's just the movies, but movie ideas come from somewhere.
Hmm. I like what Max says. He says it's sad. The world is so big, so many resources. Life could easily be much more rewarding across the planet.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
I just don't
And
know
Denise,
why.
that's
Yeah,
why we're all slaves. But you know, the reality of it is, if you fly in a plane over Canada and much of the United States, there's so much land that is not populated. People are grouped into these little cities, but there's so much land with technology. Just think for a minute. If we were stop spending all the money on war and war machines, and we started spending that money on technology to give us ways of living where we could live up north where it's very cold and still be warm. We could have whole communities that are under domes or something where we could survive really, really well. Actually, there are First Nations people in Canada who've always lived up north where it's very, very cold. Maybe they only have 3 months of sunshine and warmth during the summertime, and they lived very well, very happily. um, there's ways of adapting. We could live, in the sky. We could live underwater. We could live on the water. There's so much potential area that we could develop and live happily and comfortably on if we use technology in the right way.
absolutely. But again, it's getting the right technology and then um, being allowed to use it. And that's, you know, it's the word allowed because, you know, if they don't want you to use it, you don't get to use it. They don't want you to be part of that, you know, like it's just crazy some of the things. And even like I think, you know, when you said just recently that we've noticed that we actually don't have democracy in the last 6 months, Karen, but I think it's obviously it's always been there, but I would say since 2020. And then in Canada here, we have that ban, right? The communications ban. So if there's news in the States, we don't necessarily get to see it unless they allow us to see it. Again, there's that word allow, right?
Mhm.
And it, yeah, it is declining. Everything is starting to decline, even though, we're like, oh no, we live in a democracy, but really, really, do we? It's tough to see, right? Especially
Mhm.
when you can feel it and you start to understand it more, and when you do deep dives.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's important for us to remember is we actually do have the power. We actually do, the common people, the natural citizens of planet Earth. We have great potential and power. And only by convincing us that we do not have any power, then we're not using that power. And so, for instance, the parasite class, they need us to believe in them. They need us to worship them, believe in them, give over our power to them for them to do what they're doing. Even the concept of money, if you go back and really look at what money was all about, it's all a Ponzi scheme. It's all a big scam. There are other ways of doing things. There are other worlds that do things without money. They can be resource based. They don't have to be based on money. But all of this is to con us out of our resources and turn over our power to a small, pre-chosen, pre-selected group. And so
Right?
when we take that power back and we exercise our own sovereignty and we refuse to give them the power, and it starts, I think, in the mind. Um, Changing the way we think, changing our language. Like, for instance, I don't want to use the word elites. I like to use the word parasite class because it puts it into perspective on what's actually going on. It's taking my power back and refusing to call them or look at them the way they want to be seen. Instead, I'm seeing them more clearly for the way they are. It's like that story, children's story, called The Emperor Has No Clothes, right? Everybody is all telling the emperor how beautiful he is in his new clothes. And it takes a child to look up and laugh and go, he's naked. He doesn't have anything. And the more of us, I think, that look at these powers that be and go, they're naked, they have nothing, the more it's self evident. And then people's minds get opened and their eyes are open. They start seeing it for what it is. And then we can make the choice. No, we're not going to do that. No, we don't want to. Now, a lot of people are afraid to do that because they don't want to die. They don't want to go to prison. They don't want to be persecuted. But I got to tell you, a life well examined is a good life rather than a life of slavery, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And that's why that whole, like I said before, the term conspiracy theorist, right? There, when someone calls you that, that should actually be a compliment to you because you're waking up, right? So if we change that and take the derogatory part of it out, because it's not actually a bad thing. It's about you being fully aware, taking your power and going, no, I'm looking for me. I'm not just taking things at face value because you tell me to.
Mhm.
I'm going to research it, do the things, understand it for me, right? And yeah, it's so, you know, sometimes it could go dark, right? And it can go so deep. But you know what? That's life. There are things in life where we actually have to get to the root of it. And if it goes down that hole, well, then it goes down that hole.
Mhm.
right? Why put the label of it as of it's that it's a bad thing? It's not, right? And
Mhm.
if more of us wake up and more of us are in tune to that, you know, as the parasite class will go, whoa, there are way more of them than there are us.
Yeah, and the more power we take back, the less they have. Then they don't have it
Absolutely.
anymore. I think there's another thing that we're quickly running out of time, and I would like to touch on, and that is I think there's also a spiritual war. I think there is a war between, and then again, you could look at this from an extraterrestrial lens, but there's a war between the people who have empathy, have compassion, want to be left alone to raise their families and have enough to eat and have proper housing and worship as they see fit. And then there are those who clearly are what I'm going to call demonic or could be nefarious ETs who are only out for their own power and their own wealth, and they are empathy deficient. They don't even know what that is, what that means, what that might look like. They have a history of traumatizing their own children so that their own children become psychopathic, and it's not good. So I actually see a bit of a split for humanity right now. Which way are we going to go? Are we going to want what's in our best interest, but also in the best interest of all humanity? Or are we willing to do terrible things to gain the illusion of power for just a few? It's
Right.
another point.
Well, and if you think about it, that kind of goes back to like this spiritual war, kind of goes back to what we were kind of talking about last, like 2 weeks ago, right? The spiritual war, they unleashed this AI on us, and it's making us as humans not think for ourselves. Why? Because we can ask Rock, we could ask ChatGPT, we could ask Gemini, we can ask our computers, and our computers will think for us, right? And again, it's that use it or lose it. If you don't use this membrane, it's not going to keep firing for you, right? And maybe
Yeah.
that's what they want us to do, right? They want us to do that. And then it wages a war against everyone else because one person's thinking AI is all that in a bag of chips. And then the other one is like, well, yeah, we can use it, but it's more like an encyclopedia that kind of can give suggestions, but it's not quote unquote God, right? Whereas some people are looking at it as if AI is God.
Mhm. Well, everything we do as humans, it's a use it or lose it situation. If you don't go for a walk ever, your legs will atrophy and they won't be strong. If you don't eat properly, your body doesn't have the components it needs to stay strong. If we don't surround ourselves with loving, compassionate people, our psychology starts to break down. And if we don't use our brains and challenge our brains start to break down. So I just want to give you guys an example from my life. Right up until about, oh, I would say the 1990s, everybody had to remember everybody's phone number. Everybody. So you would know dozens of people's phone numbers. And of course, you'd have a telephone book where you would have, the number that you might need for the fire station or for the bank or for the doctor. But basically, you remembered everybody's phone numbers. Now, oh my gosh, nobody can remember. I can't remember phone numbers anymore. So it's just like one example.
Yeah.
For calculators, we did all the math on our own on a piece of paper. And you might go, well, yeah, but it saves time to use a calculator. I agree. I use a calculator. Um, but the point is if we don't use it, we lose it. And so how much are we willing to give up especially in the context of what we're talking about today, where I think we pretty much agree that the government is not transparent, that the power, we've been given the illusion of power. We're told we live in a democracy, but in fact, well, some of us live in a republic, some of us live in a democracy. Um,
Right.
but how much the politicians are not doing what we want. We get this illusion, and we see it within, when they have political campaigns and stuff. It's like, who's the best liar? And then, as been so clearly demonstrated in Canada, the politicians who get in are the people who spread the thickest BS, and they get voted in. We don't even know if that's fair or accurate or honest, but they're complete idiots. They know nothing about what we want and what we need, and they don't care. And that is not a democracy.
That is true. It's not about what we need or what we want or what, the masses need. It's about what their agenda is, right? And
Yeah,
what
about
they
it's
need to.
about sorry, go
Sorry, go
ahead.
ahead. I finished
Um,
it. That was it. Yeah.
okay, I've been watching a series on Netflix called Yellowstone. Normally, I would not watch a show like that, but I kind of got a little bit hooked into it. It really shows the juxtaposition of all these power people and what they're willing to do to get the power, and it's really like a tug of war over land, over resources, the
Yeah.
dirty things that they will do to each other to run them off the land or take away their business. It's disgusting, but I actually liked it because I felt finally there's a series on Netflix that's kind of a little bit telling the truth about what it's really like. And so, a lot of people think, oh, my life would be so much better if I had a lot of money. I would say no, not necessarily, because then you have to play all these games with all these other people, and people lose sight of what's important in the day to day. And of course, spiritual things, and I'm not talking religion, I'm talking spiritual things. I think that's something to keep in mind through all of this.
Well, and money, people say, yes, it's going to bring me happiness. If you don't have happiness before you have money, you're not going to be happy. And the notion that all your problems go away when you have money is also not true. You just have different problems that come up, right? You have
Huge
different
problems.
things. Yeah, you have first world problems instead, right? So it really is just. Yeah, and I agree. Yellowstone, that was quite interesting. And if you if you get another show, it's not on Netflix though, it's Landman. It's kind of the similar kind of take, but it's on oil and gas. And so
Mm,
you can
mhm,
see how the different polarities go and all the different powers that be that allow things to happen so that
mhm.
the riches can come out and they can obtain it, right? So,
Absolutely. I also want to say something because I myself have had extraterrestrial contact. My with beings who are very benevolent, loving beings. They are not coming to rescue us. They have complete faith that we can fix our own issues, but we need to wake up. We need to do better. We need to take our power back. And we need to start speaking our truth to each other. There is small chance some people may be evacuated, but mostly not. This is our realm. This is our world. This is our countries, our governments. It's ours. And we need to wake up to that fact and start standing up for ourselves and coming together in community to stand up for each other. And I think that's another way that we can show universal love towards each other.
absolutely. Absolutely. Like there are which I was again like I told you I was doing some research and reading and looking, I never realized that there are actually dark empaths. So, but that's another
Mhm.
topic for another day.
That'd be a
And,
good subject for another show, yeah.
right? And dark empath, like everyone assumes the empath is a good person and they want to help you or whatever. But again, there are dark empaths that steer you away from the light, steer you away from love, right? And we're not talking about lustful love. We're talking about just loving who you are, loving life, and exuding love to your fellow humans, right? And fellow beings. It's not about me all the
Mhm,
time, right?
mhm,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
So, Joan, why don't you tell everybody what you're up to if you've got some shows coming up in the next couple of weeks,
Okay.
or remind people where to find you, all that kind of good stuff.
Sounds good. Well, you can find me on my website. Again, that's my name, joanwiden.com. You can find me on YouTube at Joan Widen Clairvoyant Medium. Or is it Clairvoyant Medium? There it is, Clairvoyant Medium Joan Widen. And my podcast, I'm still trying to figure out the name. I think I might just say it is Joan, but um, it might just go a journey with Joan just to keep it the same and people can find me. That's starting up soon. I don't know the exact date. I'm trying to figure it out to go with schedule kids' schedules in order to make that happen and make it happen while I'm on tour, on psychic tours, so I don't have to skip. But that's coming up because I've already made my intro trailer for it, and I'm hoping to start it before September 1st, but that's again only in 2 weeks. So yeah, but other than that, that's where you can find me, YouTube and here, and also on Instagram, and it's Journey with Joan Widen. And how about you, Karen? Where can people find you?
Well, on Wednesdays, I have the Quantum Guide Show where I interview people who have something positive to share with humanity. And on Sundays, I have the Aliens and Angels podcast where I'm interviewing people who have had actual contact with extraterrestrials, angelic beings, transdimensionals, all that kind of good stuff. And Joan and I are both part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, and you can find us on Chris Matthews' website and on all audio podcasts. And yeah, I've got some really amazing guests. For those of you who want to know more about the ET agenda, next Sunday I'm having Sue Walker back, and she is I'm not sure what you call her. She's a psychic medium who is in full contact with the Ponti, which
Nice.
are a group of what we would call gray aliens that actually live here underneath a mountain in New Mexico in the United States. And if you have any questions that you want to ask her about their agenda, that would be great to have you all back for that. So that's about it, I think, for today. Is there anything I missed, Joan, before we say goodbye?
I think that's good. I apologize if you could hear my dog barking, but other but we're done for the day, and yes, that's it. That's great, and thank you everyone for coming and joining us today. We had a great crowd here um, interacting with us. Great to see.
Yep, it sure is. I really appreciate each and every one of you, whether you're in the live chat, listening on an audio podcast or platform later on, or watching the replay. I appreciate each and every one of you. Hope you all have a wonderful week. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Unseen Nexus.
Great, thank you.